This is Histories and Mysteries. I'm Ashley.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Rochelle.
And on today's episode, Ashley's going to be talking about the tragic story of Matthew Shepard. I have never heard of it. At least I don't think I've ever heard of it, but I've been told to expect some tears. So I am very interested in learning about what happened. I think both of you have heard all about it, right?
Yeah, I think every theater major knows this case really well because there's a play called The Laramie Project, and it's a very specific type of theater, so a lot of people learn about it in theater school. It's basically the play it was by this theater group that went down to Laramie and interviewed everybody there, and then used those interviews like verbatim in the play. So it's all of the lines are stuff that like people from the community actually said. Oh wow! Kind of like Come From Away, the musical. If you
That's
know
cool.
anything about that.
Is there like an interaction dialogue, or is it more like just?
It's mostly like not a lot of the characters like interact with each other. It's a lot of like
monologue type stuff.
Yeah, and then and the cast play like multiple characters.
Okay. Have you ever seen or done Spoon River Anthology?
No.
We did that. I played a French prostitute. It was like that. It was all like, what's the word I just said? Monologues.
Prostitute.
Yeah.
Monologues. It was all monologues. It had to have been probably one of the most boring plays for the audience, but I had fun.
That's good.
The Laramie Project's really good. They did make a movie of it too.
Okay.
A while back, which is really good. Kind of
I'll have to watch that.
telling of the story. Yeah.
Okay. Well, looking forward to this story. And
you won't be.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to be talking about Llorona, who I like to call Llorona, but apparently that's not how you pronounce it.
But your way sounds so fun.
It helps me to be less scared. I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. I'm in my dark closet. I'm talking about scary stuff, but...
Oh my gosh. Speaking of which, Rochelle...
What?
I had to walk. Cody's on nights right now, and so the other night I had to walk into my room, and I was by myself, and it's like pitch black, and we have like a remote control for like our fan, but it also controls the light, so I'll just turn the light off. So I can't like flip a switch on and flip the light, so I have to walk into the dark room. And for some reason, right at that moment, my mind decided to be like, hey, remember what's the guy that cut his eyelids off?
Oh, Jeff the Killer.
Remember Jeff the Killer? What if his face was right here in this room? And then I like freaked myself out.
I get those like thoughts sometimes when I'm trying to sleep, where it's like, what if when I open my eyes right now I see this like
so stupid. Why do we do that to ourselves?
Honestly, like when I was researching this, I kept thinking that I was seeing La Llorona in my house out of the corner of my eye and freaking myself out. And it was just my stair banister.
There is a movie that I can't remember what the name of it was, but it's basically like a jump scare where she's like looking in the mirror and then she opens a medicine cabinet, and then when she shuts the medicine cabinet, then there's like something behind her. Like I still like cringe every time I have to open up my medicine cabinet. Like I don't want to look when I shut it.
Thankfully mine's on like the side of the wall and it's just wood. It doesn't have the mirror on it.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
I think there is one of those in 13 Ghosts, which is my favorite scary movie. The princess, the daughter shuts the mirror, and then the princess it's in the bathroom scene. If anybody, have you seen 13 Ghosts?
Never even heard of it.
I don't know if I've seen it or not. It sounds familiar.
My favorite scary movie. One, it's got Matthew Lillard in it, who I just freaking adore. Yeah, he's really, really good in it. He plays like a psychic that can see the spirits. and he's like trying to help this family. It's so good. So
He's the
you have
guy
to. It's my
that
favorite
played
scary movie.
Shaggy and
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love Matthew Lillard.
And he was
He's
in
also
Without
in the
a
new show
Paddle.
Good Girls.
Oh, yeah?
He's old.
Yes. Yes, he is. He's like in his 40s.
I know, but I don't know. Like, I guess I hadn't seen him in much since like 13 Ghosts / Shaggy time. So he was like young, and then all of a sudden he was in Good Girls. It's just like, oh, he's old. Anyway, so I am more excited for your story, Jessica, because I think it'll be quite a bit lighter than mine. But there was also something that we wanted to talk about at the top of the show, so I'll let Jessica handle that.
Yes. So in the Canadian news right now, and I mean, it might be all over as well, but I know that it's very specific to Canada. The bodies of 215 Aboriginal children or First Nations children were found buried at a former residential school in BC. And just in light of the news, and just to give respect to those that are grieving and mourning, we're not going to talk about the story currently. It's been on my list for a while to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it in 2 weeks, just to give it time to kind of go through the streams. But just to give like a quick cheat sheet on what the residential schools are, just in case people didn't know. Residential schools were initially run by Catholic and Protestant churches, but by the 1880s, the federal government fully embraced and funded the residential school system as part of the Indian Act. From 1863 to 1996, over 150,000 children were forcibly removed from their families and placed in these boarding schools. That is 7 generations of Indigenous people over the course of 150 years. Many children never returned home, and those who did suffered from unimaginable trauma. The explicit intent was to separate these children from their families and cultures in an effort to, quote, kill the Indian in the child, unquote. In 1920, the Indian Act made attendance at Indian residential schools compulsory for treaty status children between the ages of 7 and 15. The schools were often underfunded and overcrowded. The quality of education was substandard. Children were severely mistreated, degraded, and abused. 90 to 100% of suffered severe physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, and there was a 40 to 60% mortality rate in residential schools. So that's just kind of like a snippet of what went on there. A lot of Canadians aren't really aware of what residential schools are, and I'm sure a lot of people around the world aren't either. I was fortunate enough, or unfortunate enough, to learn about them in high school.
Me too.
Yeah, my friends and I did like a videography on how horrible they were. So I'm looking forward to being able to shed light on that in a couple weeks. But just so that like everybody's aware of what is going on right now, we are aware of it. We're aware that things need to change, and like Canada has a dark history. But we just wanted to make sure that like people weren't thinking that we were ignoring it, but we're just trying to give it time to settle down a little bit before we approach it.
Well, thanks for that, Jessica. I had heard a little bit about the residential schools because I listened to a podcast about it. It was I want to say like Crime Junkie did a whole story on it. I could be wrong, but yeah, so I'm interested and saddened by it, but interested to hear the story, to learn more about it when you cover it.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to bringing more light to it, so hoping that we can do it justice.
Yeah. Well, one sad note to another sad note. So this month, June, when this episode comes out, we're actually recording on Memorial Day, but when this episode comes out, it will be June, which in America is Gay Pride Month. So I wanted to kind of start it off talking about one of the more well-known cases that really kind of changed the way law works and is really still driving a lot of our law changing and stuff like that towards the LGBTQIA plus community. So this is a extremely sad one. So buckle up. My sources I used were BBC Matthew Shepard, The Murder That Changed America article, Wikipedia, MatthewShepard.org, the LGBT Bar, and I watched the documentary Matthew Shepard is a Friend of Mine, which heartbreaking.
That's a good documentary.
So good. So good. Okay, let's dive on in. So, Matthew Shepard was born in 1976 in Casper, Wyoming, to Judy and Dennis Shepard. He had one younger brother, Logan, and like a lot of people, they were complete opposites. So Logan was really tall, he was really athletic, whereas Matthew was really tiny. And they talk about that a couple times because it kind of made him an easy victim. At the time he died, he was 22, and he was only 5'2". So
wow.
He was a tiny little guy, yeah. And his dad said he was also kind of clumsy. So he was not athletic in any way, shape, or form.
Me neither, buddy.
Yeah, same. But Logan, like a lot of other kids, completely looked up to his older brother. They said Matt was so gentle and kind. His dad recalled a story where they spent the whole day just like looking at this caterpillar that he like let climb all over his arms and stuff, because like learning about, you know, caterpillars and little kids like that kind of stuff. And when he was really young, his best friend was a stuffed bunny that he carried around everywhere.
Aww. So how old is Matthew?
When he died?
Yes.
22.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
He would also write poems to people and leave them in their mailboxes to cheer them up.
Aww.
Which I just think is really cute.
Yeah.
This is all when he was like little.
Yeah.
His friends also recalled a time where they would have like sleepovers, and they would do like camping sleepovers. So they would camp out in each other's yards, and his dad, as a joke, would turn the sprinklers on them in the morning to wake them up. So at about the age of 8, his mom started kind of guessing that he might be gay. He hadn't come out yet. I don't know that if at this point he even really 100% knew, you know, what he was feeling, but she did say his favorite Halloween costume was Dolly Parton. Aww. And he would dress up as her a lot, and even sometimes not on Halloween.
Cute.
So she said, that's when I started to guess that he may have been gay. But being small and, you know, not athletic, we know how teenagers are. He was picked on and, you know, could be the target of bullying. But for the most part, he was friendly enough to his classmates and got along with most of them. He was very into politics and very into theater, which I think is so perfect that they made that play, you know, just because he was so into theater. The poor kid, this poor guy, he wore braces from the age of 13 until the day he died. So he had braces from 13 to 22.
Ew.
Poor guy.
It's the worst.
I know.
I had braces for 2 years.
Yeah,
I had braces for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Really? Only
Yeah,
6
I had a gap
months?
between my 2 front teeth, and they just closed it in.
Okay.
But I also had to
my
get that
teeth
thin
were...
cut right here, that like muscle,
Ugh.
Ew.
and like shoved up.
Oh.
I
I had an expander, like one of those things that like cracks the roof of your mouth wider.
Lovely.
And like it goes like across the top of your mouth, and then there's like a little wrench that every night you gotta like wrench it open a little more and a little more.
Did that hurt
And-
so bad?
Absolutely, yeah. I felt like your brain was just cracking apart.
Oh.
And it was
I
just
hate
like
that for
constant
you.
pressure in the bridge of my nose. Ugh. Yeah, it wasn't fun.
Was your mouth
And
just not like
things would
big
get
enough?
stuck in it. Like I would get, yeah. So I didn't have enough room for like all of my teeth. And then things would get like stuck. Like we'd be eating out, and I'd get like noodles stuck in my expander, and like I'd need help like getting it out.
So you were
Not fun.
super attractive.
Oh yeah.
Noodles hanging out.
Yeah, it wasn't the coolest back then, that's for sure.
So Matthew's dad described him as kind and tender-hearted. He was an optimistic and accepting young man who had a special gift of relating to almost everyone. He was the type of person who was very approachable and always looked to new challenges. Matthew had a great passion for equality and always stood up for the acceptance of people's differences. And that was a quote from his dad. So he went through high school, and then in 1994, after his sophomore year into his junior year, his dad got a job in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia for work. Dhahran is what I wanted to say. So they moved to Saudi Arabia.
You should have just like typed it into Google and had like the automated word say it. So it could be like his dad went to Dhahran.
I knew I was going to mess that up
like,
too.
Anytime I don't know, the next time I don't know how to pronounce a word, I'm just going to like type it in and have the Google voice say it.
I love that idea. 100% do that. Oh, goodness. So they picked up the whole family and moved them to Saudi Arabia, which I can't even imagine going into junior year, moving to a country as so different to America, you know? But they went, and apparently at the time there weren't any American high schools in Saudi Arabia. Like there's a lot of American high schools all over where there's like a large American population there for, you know, this one was for oil work or, you know, diplomats, stuff like that. But they didn't have any. So all the American students would go to a boarding school outside of the country. And he attended TASIS, the American school in Switzerland is what it's called. And it was a boarding school, and he quickly made several friends. And actually, the girl who made the documentary, that's where she met him, was at this boarding school. He was described as the guy who could be in any group and make everyone feel special. He was even voted friendliest in his class. Matthews had a couple of dreams that he talked about. One was that he wanted to be a diplomat, and he wanted to change the way things were. He was very into politics and standing up for equal rights and that kind of thing. And then he also wanted to be an actor. So they said that he felt more himself on stage than he felt anywhere else because he could be someone else, and he wasn't yet comfortable in his skin. He hadn't come out yet, so... and all of his time in boarding school, Matt said that he had met the greatest people he'd ever met in his whole life, and that they'd always be the most important people in his life. So it was sweet. Okay. So here's where it starts to get a little dark. The school that they went to would organize little trips that the students could take either like outside of Europe or like within Europe, just so they could broaden their horizons a little bit more. And a group of him and his friends wanted to go to Morocco. And none of the students had ever gone to Morocco before. It's a little dangerous, so they were a little worried about that, but the school finally granted permission. And the students, one of the girls who went, said that she was a little nervous, but they just tried to be more careful. One night, while they were there at 2 a.m., Matt's friend heard a knock on the door, and they heard, "It's me, Matt, let me in." And she said then she just heard like a guttural scream. And she opened the door. She saw like he was disheveled, and she grabbed him. He like fell into her arms. They fell to the floor, and he just screamed and sobbed and screamed. He apparently went out for a walk that night. On his way back to the hotel, he was pulled into an alley and 6 men robbed and raped him. She said he thinks that he was out walking around because he just wanted to have a little bit of time to be himself and not have to play a part. You know, when he's trying to hide who he is around his friends, it's tiring. And so she thinks that he just wanted to relax and, you know, explore a little bit and not have to be something that he wasn't.
Yeah.
So because of this attack, he dealt with anxiety and depression for the rest of his life. He was hospitalized many times for depression and suicidal ideation. He was changed. He never wanted to do theater again. He never wanted to be in large crowds. His mom said his posture even changed. He would shuffle and hunch his shoulders and not look people in the eye. So at this time, he decided to move back to America and go to college, and he started at Catawba College in North Carolina. And during that time, he finally came out to his mom, and she said, "What took you so long?" So she was very accepting.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. He was a little bit more nervous to come out to his dad. And so he went a few days later. He was like, "Hey, Dad, can I talk to you in private?" And his dad was like, "Sure." He's like, "You know, I have something really important I need to talk to you about." And his dad was like, "Okay." And he said, "Dad, I'm gay." And his dad said, "Okay. Now, what is the important thing you need to tell me? Because I've got stuff I have to do."
Aw.
So his parents were very accepting of him.
Good.
And he was shocked. His dad said, "It didn't matter. He was still my son. Matt is my son, and he always will be, and that's the important thing." So in his first year of college, he did make some friends, but one of his friends said that he just didn't seem settled. He moved around a lot in the city, and he finally decided that it wasn't for him, and he wanted to move back west. And he said that he was nervous, but so excited. He was excited to have a chance to live a full life. So he moved to Denver, Colorado for about a year. His friends said he was so fun, and everyone would joke about who got to date him first. But then he would have bouts of depression, and his friends said it would take him to really dark places. And if anybody suffers from depression, typical, his house would go in disarray. He'd have rotting food, that kind of stuff. So, but then he would come back out of it and, be the fun-loving Matthew everybody knew again. So, he was always on a quest to find out who he was and figure out where he belonged in the world. And a lot of people felt that about him. And I think that after that horrific assault happened, that kind of made him question everything.
Well, yeah, he'd have major PTSD too.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was really, really lonely in Denver. He was really depressed. This is really sad. So he turned to the church to find comfort. And there was a lady there who was so mean to him and told him that gay people were going to hell and all this kind of stuff. So that furthered his depression. And one of his close friends finally said, "Matthew, why don't you come back to Laramie, Wyoming, and attend the University of Wyoming?" It was his home. It was where he grew up. He had a godfather there. He had friends there. And he was going home. Everybody thought it was the best thing for him. Little did they know that would be the end of him. There he decided to join an LGBTQIA group and started a mentoring program. So he thought that it would be a great idea for students who had been at the University of Wyoming a little bit longer to help incoming University of Wyoming students. So he started this program. He decided to major in political science with a minor in languages, and he was even chosen as the student representative for the Wyoming Environmental Council. So he was doing pretty well. Things were kind of finally turning around for him. And a few weeks before Matt was murdered, he even told his friend that he felt safe in Laramie. Blech. He told another friend that it was the greatest decision he made to come back. So, let's get into his murder. So, on the night of October 22nd, Matthew went to a meeting on campus of the LGBTQ group. And afterwards, he wanted to go get a couple drinks. And nobody wanted to go with him, but he was like, I'll just go by myself. The bar was called Fireside. The bartender said it wasn't uncommon for Matthew to come in and, like, sit down at the bar, have a couple drinks, just unwind, So he went, and around 11 p.m.-ish, Russell Henderson and Aaron McKinney came into the bar and ordered a pitcher. And they paid for it with dimes and nickels because they're douches.
Yeah.
And the police said that McKinney was a consistent customer to them.
Huh.
And for some reason, Russell seemed to follow him. So McKinney was really like the ringleader and the more dominant personality, and Russell kind of followed in his footsteps. So the boys noticed Matt. They figured he had money. I think by the way he was dressed. He was always dressed really well. He was so cute. He was blonde hair, blue eyes, and this was the 90s, so he had like the swoosh, like Zac Efron hair.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah, he was adorable. So they figured that he had money, and they also could tell that he was gay. And they decided to pretend to be gay to earn his trust, and then they were going to rob him. And so they went up to him and started talking to him, and nobody really knows at this point what happened, but for some reason they all left together. So, it could have been as simple as like, hey, let's go back to my place, have a couple drinks, or they were really getting along, who knows. So once they were in the car, McKinney turned to Matthew and said, hey, we're not gay, and you're gonna get jacked. And then McKinney began to beat Matt and said, give me your wallet, and Matt did. He only had $20 on him. So this whole thing, they got $20. And even though he gave him his wallet, McKinney kept beating him. They drove out to a fence, and Matt struggled against them, but at 5'2" against two guys, he was no match. They tied him to the fence, where they continued to beat him with the butt of a .357 Magnum gun. There were 18 blows to the head and face, 4 skull fractures. The final blow was right behind his right ear. It crushed his brainstem and tore his ear away. They left Matt to die in the cold night air, and he wasn't found for 18 hours.
The way he's found too, like, I can't imagine being that kid on the bike.
Yeah, so there was a kid that was biking down the road, and he fell, and he looked up and he saw the beaten body of Matthew, but he thought it was like a scarecrow because they couldn't even, he didn't look human. Yeah, so they called the police, and dispatch told police to respond to someone who was beat up. So the detective wasn't sure what exactly she was pulling up to. She pulled up to him and saw him. She ran up to him. He was tied with his hands behind his back to the fence, but he was laying on his back. So he was kind of like, imagine like laying on your back and your hands are kind of like to the side, like tied to the fence. He was covered in dried blood, except he had 2 streaks down his face where his tears had been streaming. She said he was deformed, and she tried to keep him alive to get him help. And at first, because he was so small, they thought he was a young boy. She said she thought he was about 12. He was actually 22, but he was just a tiny guy. So when she ran up to him trying to revive him, she said, "Baby boy, I'm here, kiddo. You're going to be okay. Hang in there. Don't give up. Come on, you can do this." They called his parents in Saudi Arabia and told him he had been injured, and they didn't know if he was going to make it or not, and they needed to come home. His dad thought it was a car wreck. Unfortunately, he found out the truth online.
Ugh, what a horrible way.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the hospital, obviously Matt was in a coma. His head was so swollen they could barely tell it was him. His mom said when they walked up to him, they knew it was him because of his braces. He had tubes and bandages, and his fingers were curled up, which is typical of like a comatose patient. At first, the police thought that it was just a robbery that had gone bad, but they'd only made off with $20, and the overkill and beating suggested otherwise. The cops then found out that he was gay, and so they started to look into that angle. Was this a hate crime? They did quickly find out that Aaron McKinney had been seen with Matt just right before he died from the bar, and they tried to find him, but he was hiding already. He told his girlfriend, quote, "I'm pretty sure I just killed an F word. I'm not going to say the word. We all know what it is, F-A-G." McKinney confessed almost immediately. Meanwhile, Matthew was still clinging to life. He was being kept alive by machines, and the Matt everyone knew and loved was gone. The best they could hope for at this point was that his body would stay alive in a vegetative state. His dad had hope still, though, and drove back to his childhood home where they still had some items stored, trying to find things from his childhood that might bring him back. The decision finally came where they had to make the decision. The day finally came where they had to make the decision. Would they pull the plug or keep him alive on life support? A decision that no parent should ever have to make. Matt's mom asked his lifelong friend, and actually the first person that he came out to go in there and tell Matt that it was time to let go, that it was okay to stop fighting. He said he would, so he went down to the bed and told Matt that he wasn't going to be forgotten and they would find some good to come out of this, and for his mother and father's sake, he just needed to let go. Matt finally passed away at midnight that night, 5 days after his brutal attack. Before he was attacked, his family all went on vacation, and the last words he ever spoke to his parents were, "I love you." This brutal hate crime made international news. Everyone was disgusted by this crime, and even the president at the time, Bill Clinton, spoke out at his disgust and said, "In our shock and grief, one thing must remain clear. Hate and prejudice are not American values." So this, we have talked about a little bit in a previous episode. The Westboro Baptist Church showed up at his funeral. Yeah. Thankfully, counter-protesters also showed up. And the protesters showed up again at the murder sentencing. And the counter-protesters again showed up. And they decided that they wanted to show up as with these huge white angel wings to block out the protesters. So they got huge white sheets and PVC pipes and kind of made it go like that. So they had these huge, white wings to block out the protesters. So Russell pleaded guilty, didn't want to go to trial, and was sentenced to 2 life sentences.
Oh,
but McKinney went to trial.
2 years.
No, 2 life sentences.
Oh, good.
But McKinney decided to go to trial, and the prosecutor was seeking the death penalty. McKinney said that he wanted to speak to a priest while on trial. The priest said that at first he was very cocky and would try to justify what he did. So he would say, well, Matthew touched my leg and it made me mad, or something like that. There's actually in the documentary a really touching moment between the priest and the girl who made the documentary, just kind of about hurt and pain and being angry. So the priest also said that McKinney expected the death penalty and that he was scared. One of the things that McKinney's lawyer wanted to use was called the gay panic defense. Do you guys know what that is?
I feel like I've heard that before, especially since I have very much studied this in the past, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, so it's basically what it sounds like. And it was a defense, and still, unfortunately, in some states, is a defense in America that you can use. And it basically says that a person lost control because they found out that the victim was gay. So this is usually used in one of three ways. Either saying they were so overcome with rage that they had a diminished capacity, basically saying they went insane. You can use it in a defense of provocation, which is saying that a sexual advance was enough to induce the defendant to kill the victim. And they can also use it as self-defense, saying that somehow, I'm sure the lawyers can manipulate this to sound not insane. To me, it sounds insane. That somehow their sexuality was going to cause the perpetrator harm. So they had to defend themselves. And unfortunately, juries have acquitted dozens of murderers using this defense. And as recently as April of 2018.
Of course.
Several groups are working to outlaw this defense strategy, and it has been banned in several states, and they're currently working on a federal ban. So basically the judge says, no, you can't use this defense. So McKinney's defense then turns to, because he wanted to use it, so he basically said that Shepard made a pass at him, and it made him so mad that he had to kill him.
Oh my God.
He said, being a very drunk homophobic, this is how he said it, being a very drunk homophobic, I flipped out and began to pistol whip the F word with my gun.
This is making me angry.
Yeah. McKinney was found guilty, and Matt's parents asked prosecutors to take the death penalty off the table. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences. In 2009, Obama signed the law, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Law. And right now, a collection of Matthew's personal effects, donated by his parents, are on display at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. His remains were placed at the Washington National Cathedral, which is known as the spiritual home of the nation. And I want to end it off with this quote, if I can get through it without crying, from his dad. And this was what he said basically at the victim impact panel, and kind of explains why his parents asked to take the death penalty off the table. My son Matthew did not look like a winner. After all, he was small for his age, weighing at the most 110 pounds and standing just over 5 foot 2 inches tall. He was rather uncoordinated and wore braces from the age of 13 until the day he died. However, in his all too brief life, he proved that he was a winner. My son, a gentle, caring soul, proved that he was tough, as in not... Sorry, I had a typo in here. Proved that he was tougher than anyone I have ever heard or known. On October 12th, my firstborn son and my hero died, 50 days before his 22nd birthday, with his mother and brother holding his hand. He actually died on the outskirts of Laramie, when you beat him. You left him out there by himself, but he wasn't alone. There were lifelong friends with him. First, you've got the beautiful night sky with the same stars and moons that we used to look through the telescope when he was little. Then he had the daylight and the sun to shine on him one more time. One more cool, wonderful autumn day in Wyoming, he heard the wind. The ever-present Wyoming wind for the last time. He had one more friend with him. He had God. I feel better knowing he wasn't alone. Mr. McKinney, I'm going to grant you life, as hard as that is for me to do because of Matthew. Every time you celebrate Christmas, or birthday, or the 4th of July, remember that Matt isn't. Mr. McKinney, I give you life in the memory of one who no longer lives. May you have a long life, and may you thank Matthew every day for it.
That monologue is in the play. Mm-hmm.
So, while that is an incredibly sad story, I think it's important to know what people have to go through just to be who they are. And I think it's something that you know, sometimes we take advantage of or take for granted when we don't have those similar struggles. And I think that's what Gay Pride Month is all about. So I wanted to, as much as that hurt, you know, take that on. So that story on.
Way to bring us down.
I know. It's so sad.
Holy macaroni. Well, that was awful. It just reminded me of The Outsiders at the end where he says stay gold.
Yeah, I just like, I don't know, I look at Oliver and there is nothing that he could do that would ever make me stop loving him. And I don't understand how parents can disown their kids.
I know, when you were like telling your story, I'm looking at my daughter on the baby camera and it just made me cry.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, the play does a really good job of like capturing like the emotions of the people in the town and like how it really changed everything. Like you hear from the well, it's like their actors are playing the characters, but you like hear from the boy that found him on his bike and the police officer and her listen to her like tell her side of the story. And yeah, it's it was really kind of big I don't know, advancement in theater at the time, because it was just like a very different kind of way to produce a show.
Well, and Wyoming is very kind of like Wild West cowboy, conservative, you know, both socially and politically. And they said that this really changed that, which is hard to do. But all right, let's hear about some ghosts.
I don't want to. I'm scared. And I'm crying. Okay, hopefully I'm not sniffling too much.
I've been thinking about getting like a Shudder subscription.
Ooh.
You know, it's like
yeah.
Netflix, but it's like scary.
We looked at that,
good.
but it didn't have like a lot of good stuff on it, so we didn't.
No. It's the problem with like horror films is there's not a lot of good
Yeah,
ones.
when I get around, I mean, scary movies are my favorite. And then once October hits, I am just 24/7 scary movies. And so I get to like those B, C, D scary movies. But I did find 2 scary movies that were kind of like lower budget scary movies that I loved. And they were Hell House, LLC, and there's 3 of them. So good. And Grave Encounters. They made it. It was a movie. It was really good too.
Okay. So, do you want me to say it La Llorona or Ya Llorona?
Ya Llorona!
Probably not the most acceptable thing to do, like at next.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Well, I used to speak Spanish, so. And to me, Ya Llorona sounds better than La Llorona. Ya Llorona.
My
I know, that's what I think
Sharona.
every time she says that. My Sharona.
All right. Oh my god.
Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. I was like thinking of something when you were talking about movies during Halloween. And my favorite movies to watch are like Halloween Town and Twitches.
I love Twitches and
Twitches
Halloween
too.
Town. Those are so good.
Those are
I watched those last year on
must-watch.
Disney Plus. It was great.
Oh, I love them. I love them.
You know the girl that plays Marnie and the guy that plays Calabar are like actually
I
together
love that
in
so
real
much.
life.
Yes.
Isn't that cute?
There's a town in the Northeast that does like a Halloween town every year.
Yeah, that it like dresses
Yeah,
up
like
like
a big
Halloween
pumpkin
town
in the middle
every
and
year.
everything. I want to go really bad.
Canada's Wonderland do that too. Like they have a big globe, and then during Halloween haunt, they like wrap it up as a big pumpkin, and that's what it reminds me of. I love it. I love how I obviously have a pumpkin on my thigh and a ghost. But yeah, I wish I lived in a village like
That'd
that
be so
all
cool.
the time.
Like 24/7 Halloween. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, Llorona. She is a tragic figure in Mexican folklore. One story goes, in the 1930s, a boy and his family were enjoying a day on their property when they saw a woman nearby. The woman was dressed in all white, and she crossed the road and headed to a nearby creek. This woman appeared to glide rather than walk before disappearing.
Have you seen those? Are they the Russian dancers, the Ukrainian dancers that like float because their
Yeah, and the
dresses
way they
are so
move their
long?
feet. Yeah.
Yeah, and they move their feet so fast that they're just like sliding.
Maybe that's what she's
nicely
doing. She's
across
not
the
like
floor.
being supernaturally floating. She's just like really well trained in that dance.
She knows how to do that
Yeah,
dance.
my friend used to do the Ukrainian dancing, so I used to go like watch her dance all the time. It was
Cool.
fun. Yeah. So, she then reappeared at a distance away that was far too quick for anyone to have moved before disappearing one final time without leaving any evidence she had been there at all. So, who is she? Oh God. Oh no, oh no, oh no. My computer just spazzed. That was fun. Ya Llorona translates to the Weeping Woman, and it is a popular story throughout the U.S. and Mexico. Her story has been told in many different ways, but she is always depicted as a tall, thin, and willowy woman who is at the water weeping for her children. Her story is so old that it goes back over 4 centuries.
Wow.
Did you guys...
I like a good classic.
You guys watched Supernatural. She reminds me of their very first episode, The Woman in White.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So the woman in white, the one that like appears in the car or on the road and then in the car.
Yeah.
Ooh. I had a dream like that once when it was a dream that I was in the car with my grandma and we were just driving home and it was late and there was a woman like swooping the road and we like drove into her and she vanished.
Interesting. All right. She was regarded by the Aztecs as one of the 10 omens foreshadowing Mexico's conquest, or as a terrifying goddess. Yeah. Cihuacoatl, or Snake Woman, is a goddess who has been described as a terrible beast and a bad omen, who wears white, travels around at night, and cries ceaselessly.
Always gotta blame the women for everything.
Always.
I could do that job. I could do that job
crying.
easily. I can walk around and cry.
Another goddess was Chalchiutlique. That's something. Or the jade-skirted one. She was goddess over the water who would allegedly drown people. In order to appease her, the Aztecs would sacrifice children to her. Yeah. In other depictions, she was La Malinche, the native woman who assisted Hernan Cortez, who I'm going to be talking about at some point. She helped him in his conquest of Mexico. She was his interpreter, his guide, and eventually his mistress. She actually ended up giving birth to Cortez's children, but once that happened, he left her and he married a fellow Spaniard instead. I know. So to enact revenge, she murdered the babies she had with Cortez.
Whoa! Whoa! That's going straight
Yes.
to 100, I think.
And there's no real evidence that the real La Malinche killed her children or was exiled by her people, but it is possible the legend was brought over by the Europeans. And has anybody seen The Road to El Dorado?
No.
Yes.
Ashley.
The cartoon, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that one.
you're missing
I
out.
haven't seen Coco either.
You
I
guys
haven't
need to watch
seen
Coco
Coco
because it's
either.
freaking adorable.
I heard it was really sad and made people cry, though, so I didn't want to watch it.
It does, but it's really good. It's a really, really well done movie. And there's a song called Ya Llorona in it. The one lady sings a song literally called Ya Llorona. It's one of my favorite songs in the movie.
Wow.
But anyway, so in The Road to El Dorado, you remember Seko Khan, how he led Cortez to El Dorado? That just really reminded me of La Malinche. And how she was, I don't know, guiding him, but it
I
just
can't help you with that one. I haven't
it
seen
just
that.
reminded me of the movie. So the narrative of an angry mother who murders her own children may be traced all the way back to Greek mythology's Medea, who murdered her boys when her husband Jason deceived her.
Why is everybody murdering their kids to get back at their husbands? Oliver, I won't murder you to get back at Cody.
Right? Like, what does that do, murdering
I
your
know.
children?
She just wanted an
Yeah,
excuse to
obviously
murder
the
her
husband
children.
doesn't care.
Yeah, or he would be there.
Yeah. So to keep adventurous children away from the water where they might stumble in, English parents have traditionally invoked the story of Jenny Greenteeth, who draws children down into a watery grave.
Oh, no.
I like the green teeth part.
Jenny
Yeah.
Green.
bleh. The most common version of the story depicts Maria, a beautiful young peasant woman who marries a wealthy man. Before Maria's husband lost interest in her, the pair lived happily for a time and had 2 children together. Maria, however, was walking down by the river with her 2 children when she noticed her husband riding by in his carriage, escorted by a lovely young lady. Maria then threw her 2 children into the river and drowned them both in a fit of madness.
Okay, so all of these stories have the woman murdering her child or her children, and I kind of thought that they were murdered and that's why she was running around wailing, not like that she did it.
Yep, she did it and she's kind of grieving.
Bitch be crazy.
Yes. And then regretted her decision afterwards.
Ugh.
So, in the Supernatural episode, she had, left her children unattended and they drowned, I think, or she drowned them in the tub or
Yeah.
whatever it was, right? So Maria, according to another version of the event, threw herself into the river after her children. In another version, Maria was portrayed as a vain woman who preferred to spend her nights out in town rather than caring for her children. I hear cats.
Oh, I thought that was Evie. I was like, uh-oh.
No, she dead asleep.
No, that's my cat. The freaking door again.
She arrived home intoxicated one evening to discover both of her children had drowned. Since she didn't care for her children and they ended up dead, she was cursed to forever search for them in the afterlife. But whatever the story that's told, the children are always dead, and there is a woman in white wailing for them. It is also said, if the wailing sounds close, she is actually far away. And if the wailing sounds far away, she's actually near you.
I really, really hate that.
Right? Isn't it
Thank
terrifying?
you.
I don't know why I hate that so much, but I really hate that.
It's so creepy.
It is. Why is that so creepy, though?
Because it gives you a,
False sense of security.
exactly my words that I was about to say, but I forgot what the words were. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's something security.
Yeah. Because if it sounds really far away, then you feel like you have a chance
I just,
to get away from it.
Yeah. Oh, I
I'm
know.
home alone tonight. This is awful.
It's almost midnight here, and I'm in a very dark closet by myself, if that helps. So according to certain legends, the ghost of Llorona is feared. She is reported to be vindictive, stealing other people's children and drowning them instead of her own. According to some beliefs, she is a warning, and people who hear her screams will soon die. She is also used as a fear and a punishment tactic for bad children. Okay, so do you guys want to hear some spooky stories now?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So these are true accounts. Take it how you will. They are quite lengthy, but they're pretty spooky, so...
Perfect, because again, Cody is on night, so get to be alone in the dark tonight. I'm excited.
Yes! So perfect. What did you use last time? Like your toothbrush as a weapon, or you just said, oh my god, and...
Yeah, I just said, oh my god, and fell into the wall, so... I'm going to be a lot of help if anything ever happens.
Perfect. Alright, so this was username, I don't even know, u/dgenderdog85, something like that. I don't even know. This happened to me when I was about 11 years old. It was the 90s. I have lived my whole life in El Paso, Texas. The culture is rich in folklore and religious beliefs. Many Hispanic families have stories of the paranormal. One legend popular is the legend of the Weeping Woman, aka Llorona. One night, this is their grammar, okay? Okay. One night, it just like any other night, I lived in a trailer with my mom and dad. My youngest brother was staying with my aunt this night. I fell asleep watching Jay Leno as usual, and when I woke up, I was on the sofa in my living room. The time was 4:00 a.m., which illuminated from the stove in the kitchen. The television was off, and normally I had a light on, but this time it was pitch black. I woke up and I heard a horrible screaming that was coming from the far distance.
That means she's close.
Yeah, exactly.
Ugh.
The screaming was coming from a ditch that was a few feet away from my home. I heard it and I thought I was hearing things. I asked myself, am I dreaming? Then I started to hear the animals outside howling and whimpering. These animals that I speak of are cats and dogs. As the screaming got closer, the animals continued to cry. The screaming was something I have never experienced ever before. It sounded like I was in a big hallway and a woman was screaming her guts out down that hallway. Then, in all the screaming, I started to make out words. These words being said by whoever this was at 4 a.m. screaming their guts out shocked me.
Uh-oh. Do I want to know? I don't want to know, but I do want to know. Tell me.
The woman said, "Ay, mis hijos," which means, "Oh, my children."
Oh.
In a huge panic, I quickly got up from the sofa and ran to the kitchen, which was right next to where I was asleep. I turned the closest light on and looked around. The screaming didn't stop. In fact, the screaming only got louder and closer. Which means that she's getting farther away.
Yeah. Not in this story, though, I'm sure.
Yeah. I questioned my sanity at that moment. Was I going crazy or hearing things? Then I thought to myself, this is real and the animals are responding to it in a negative way. So I did what any other 11-year-old boy would do in a moment like this. I ran to my mom and dad's room. So I ran to my mom and dad's room. I reached for my mom and shook her awake wildly. She woke up slowly, and to my amazement, the screaming faded away and she woke awake. I thought to myself, what the heck is going on? I told my mother, Mom, do you hear that screaming and crying lady? My mom was half asleep and she said, go back to sleep. It is most likely just your imagination. I told her, no, this is real. Please listen. Don't you hear her? My mom quickly just said, you are dreaming, so go back to sleep. It's going to be okay. By then, the screaming had faded long away, like if whoever was screaming knew that an adult is awake. I was terrified as I returned to the living room and quickly turned on the television as I left most of the lights on as well. I didn't go back to sleep until the sun came up. I couldn't believe what I heard and witnessed. I was treated like a crazy person whenever I told my story. It got so bad that I kept my experience to myself. To this day, I don't care what people think of my experience. I know what I heard, and a couple of years later, it happened to me again.
No, not again.
Yeah, I think I have one of this person's story later on, but yeah, so that was one spooky story.
Ooh.
Love it,
It's
right?
like, it's bad when the animals get in on it, you know, like, I just, ugh.
I was watching like a scary movie once, and one of my cats a few years back was just, the entire time the movie was on, he sat and stared at my fridge.
Oh, God.
And as soon as the movie ended, he moved away.
My cat has started to stare at this one corner in our dining room, and I hate it so much. But, like, only 2 people have owned this house before me, and they're both, like, still alive, and, like, one lives in Florida and one lives a little bit closer to the power plant out here.
That doesn't matter. You live in Arizona. That's like the Cowboys' territory.
Oh, yeah, somebody could have died on my land.
Exactly.
Ooh.
A cowboy. You might have a cowboy ghost.
If he's a good ghost, that's okay. I just don't want none of them rootin' tootin' bad boy cowboys.
You don't want a Jesse James type?
No. I want like a nice boy, a nice little cowboy that was like a farm hand.
I meant
and
Billy
like
the kid. He's lovely.
No, just one that like worked on the farm and was nice to his mom.
All right. Well, that's a nice dream you have. All right. So this other one was Amy Reld 8. And she said that when they were children, they lived near water. My aunt who spoke to the children was only an infant. My great-grandmother had laid my aunt in her crib, which happened to be near a window that faced the water. After a little while, my aunt began to cry. My great-grandmother walked into the nursery and froze. A black figure was reaching through the window and reaching for my aunt.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that gave me chills.
My great-grandmother, being a devout Catholic, began invoking the name of Christ. The figure recoiled from my aunt and out of the window. My great-grandmother watched the entity walk along the wall and recede into the water. Yeah, Llorona had tried to take my aunt.
Oh.
Like, yuck.
I don't like that at all.
I don't like where it's like it recoiled along the wall. It's like, ugh.
Speaking of things on a wall, have you seen that video of that lady who lets her dogs out into her backyard?
Yes.
And there's a freaking bear.
Yes, and she freaking yeeted the bear.
the bear off the wall to save her dogs.
And then the bear came back.
And she had to like rush her dogs in.
Oh my goodness. That's, yeah, I saw that today on TikTok.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and the one dog like attacked the bear, and then there's a bunch of like little dogs that were trying to get at the bear. And, oh my goodness. That's crazy. Do you know where it was?
No, but it looked like the west. I mean, it was definitely in the west somewhere.
Yeah. But interesting. Okay, so this one is from Dreams 562. So this is one of the many stories my mother has passed down to my siblings and I when we were very young. I'm gonna say I was about 9 or 10 years old, and they took place in Central America, El Salvador to be precise. My grandma one day was supposed to meet up with a friend to go to another friend's wake. Back then, people would stay all night mourning at the wake with the deceased. My grandma was waiting for her friend where they had agreed to meet, which happened to be near a little river or creek. She sees this woman from far away, all in white, and my grandma says it looked just like her friend. Her name was Mary. Oh, I didn't even, catch this when I was doing this research. But remember the story was about, Maria or something?
Oh, yeah.
And then this girl's name was Mary.
Mary? Yeah, that's very close.
Very close. Anyways, sorry, that was just a little oh.
Yeah. No, I didn't catch that till now, too. Till you said something.
So she starts following this woman, calling out for her, thinking it's her friend. She followed her by the river and then kept calling out for her, but no answer. Fucking rude. It starts getting creepy when this woman is going towards these trees away, and my grandmother starts catching up, but as she was getting closer to her, she started to feel what she says. Her shoulders were big, her head felt big, and she couldn't move anymore. She was close enough to see, just very heavy.
Yeah.
Which is not the feeling that you would think somebody would describe when experiencing the paranormal.
Yeah.
She was close enough to see this woman's face that was covered by a veil, and she said the woman's face was a skull.
Ew.
Yeah, my grandma somehow came out of her shock and ran as fast as she could. She said she felt as if she was running slow and wasn't getting away fast enough. These stories always gave me the chills, but have always been fascinating. She states it was Llorona, or the Weeping Woman, because she was walking by the river. They passed it and headed towards some trees. Okay, anyways. That was the end. There is some more, but it just didn't make any sense. It was please let me know if you want me to, read more. Or tell more stories, whatever it was.
Yeah, I want to hear more stories.
Okay. This is from Della Curls.
Oliver doesn't want to hear more stories.
It's this is scary. Alright, so this story has been told to me by my mom a few times, and every single time I still get that creepy, eerie feeling that someone is watching me. My mom is from a small town in Mexico located in Zacatecas. Hopefully I said that right. When she was around 14, she had the habit of waking her mom up to go to the restroom since it scared the crap out of me. My phone just vibrated.
Getting a little scary in there.
So when she was around 14, she had the habit of waking her mom up to go to the restroom since it was an older home and the restroom was located outside. My mom tells me that it was around 3 a.m. when she woke up and felt the need to use the restroom urgently. So she began calling out for her mom, and after a while of her mom not responding, she began getting agitated and started screaming. At this point, my mom turns around, and at the foot of her bed, she sees her mom standing there. She was wearing a white robe, but had a very bleak expression on her face, and both of her arms were extended. Ugh.
Ugh, I hate that so much.
I do too. The whole image of that is just, vomit-inducing.
Awful.
My mom said that she suddenly felt extremely cold and a huge sense of dread. She had never seen her mom wear a white robe. That's when she looked down and saw her mom's feet weren't touching the floor.
Oh!
At that moment, she screamed and quickly threw the covers over her head. Her mom, wearing something completely different, runs in to find my mom shaking in her bed. Nobody believed my mom. Everyone told her that it was a dream. Until a few days later, there was a power outage. During this, my mom and a few of her siblings with her parents all decided to sleep in the living room. At around the same time, at 3 a.m., they heard the same undeniable wails of Ya Llorona down their street. None of them slept that night.
Yeah, I don't think I would either.
No, I wouldn't either. This next one, I think, is the same as the first story we had.
Oh, his second encounter?
I think so.
Oh.
So it says, this story takes place after the first incident with the woman known as Ya Llorona. Not much happened after the first time I heard her. An incident occurred with my aunt about a year after my encounter. According to my aunt, they were sleeping and suddenly there was a horrible sound coming from the ditch located in front of their house. There is a street in between the ditch and the house, but our house and the ditch are really close to one another. It was at about 2:30 a.m. when my aunt was awakened by a screaming woman coming from the ditch. For some reason, it's just a lot creepier that it's in a ditch.
100% than if it was just like walking in their yard or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, ugh. And I don't even know if it's like a normal person ditch or if it's a completely different type of thing because of where they live.
Yeah.
But
well, I think it's so unusual for people to like be in ditches unless they're like dead. So I think maybe that's why it's so creepy.
Yeah, that's very true. My aunt figured somebody was being hurt or attacked. She walked out to the front yard looking towards that ditch and saw there was no woman. My cousin, her daughter, walked out the front as well, asking what was happening. My aunt, of course, had no idea as the screaming grew closer. Then they saw her, a woman in a white dress. The only thing that shook them to the bone was the woman had no feet and was clearly floating.
No feet? Where are her feet?
They're gone, man.
Ew.
She's a floater. She's a floater.
I want to float. That'd be freaking awesome. You get places so quickly.
Exactly. One other feature that threw them off was that this woman had no face.
Okay, that's worse. No feet, no face?
And
what is wrong with her?
And it's creepier than the skull face.
Yeah.
Ugh. They both just turned after seeing that and ran inside their house. My aunt locked the door and called the police. The police showed up minutes later and took their claim seriously. El Paso PD...
Sure, they did.
Honestly, right? El Paso PD was soon looking at the area where this woman was seen and heard screaming. The police soon returned and said there was no evidence that a woman was there. They looked at the area where the woman was seen walking, and not even footprints were found. One of the police officers even
asked... she didn't have feet!
Yeah, exactly. Why would there be evidence if there were no feet?
Can you imagine that 911 call? Like, 911, what's your emergency?
Honestly, I want to try and, see if there's a lot of that. Like, if you can find stuff like that out there and then, do an episode on it. See if there's, people that call in for paranormal claims.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, stupid call-ins that you can find, so I'm sure you can find some paranormal ones.
I honestly feel like it must be common.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Mm-hmm. Might be interesting to look into.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the police officers even asked if maybe my aunt was dreaming everything that had happened. The next day is when I went over to visit and I saw my cousin like I've never seen her before. She had black bags under her eyes and she hasn't slept since the incident. I asked her what happened. She said she saw what my aunt saw. The screaming woman with no feet and no face. It took her a while to sleep normal again. She never heard or saw Llorona again, but to this day she won't deny that she witnessed something that she can't explain.
That'd be terrifying.
Yeah.
I would never, ever, ever be able to be outside that house at night ever again.
Never. And honestly, remember when I had that nightmare of that demon that we spoke about
yes,
forever ago? It took me so long to be able to sleep again. I was so scared to sleep. I was able to sleep, but I was scared to close my eyes.
Yeah. Ugh.
Unlike my cousin, I don't have the luck of avoiding Llorona. It was in the early 2000s when I worked here in El Paso, Texas, at a local supermarket named Big 8. Oh, I don't even think I read this one. One of the shifts that I worked was from 3 a.m. to 12 p.m. The store was located in the lower valley of El Paso. In the back of the store is a small ditch. Oh my goodness, what is with this family and ditches? One early morning at about 4 a.m. I had the back doors open and I was taking the empty milk crates outside in the back. I was working with 2 other guys at the time of this incident. One of the guys, named R, thought it would be funny to close the back doors and lock me outside as a joke. When I heard the doors close shut, I knew he was just messing around. I thought to myself, I will just stay quiet and wait for him to open the doors again. I wasn't going to give in to his joke of trying to scare me. I stood by the door smiling and thinking to myself, he's not going to scare me. I could hear R laughing on the other side of the doors. I thought to myself, well, the joke is on him because I'm not scared. And about 1 minute later in the far distance, I heard screaming. I heard, ah!
That was a great scream, Jess.
Thank you. A baby is sleeping in the other room. Oh my goodness.
2 minutes ago, Oliver could have given you that impression.
Imagine. I should just play one of the videos of my child screaming.
This is what they heard.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, it would terrify anybody. So he heard the scream, and I thought to myself, it's the same screaming that I heard when I was 11 years old. The screaming got louder and closer to me. I felt a chill down my spine, and I felt that I was being watched by some unseen force. I felt a sense of hopelessness. It was a feeling unlike any other. I started pounding on the door. I yelled, let me in. There's somebody out here. I pounded my fist and started kicking the door. What the F? Let me in. I could hear R laughing on the other side of the door. I started to kick the door harder. The screaming was now coming from right in back of me. Just then, R opened the door and said, what the F is that? Just then, I ran inside and locked the warehouse door. R said, why was that lady screaming? Did she need help? I told him that I don't think that was a lady. I told him what happened to me when I was younger. R told me, Jay, don't you think maybe you are cursed or she is following you?
Oh, that's not something to say to someone.
No, that's
but
not
that's kind of
nice.
what I was thinking too.
Yeah, he could be cursed for sure.
Well, and it seems like this is like, I just said like a lot rapid fire. It seems as if this is the second story I think you read where they said this was the second time that they had encountered her.
Yeah.
So does she attach to people, I wonder?
Maybe, but like his aunt and cousin never had it happen to them again, so not sure. Good thought though.
Yeah.
I like your thought.
Thanks.
I stayed quiet when he told me that. I couldn't work my shift normally after that. It took a few hours to get over what happened. I admit I was scared and maybe R was right. What if she was following me?
Yeah.
There's one more incident of this guy, I think.
The same guy?
Yeah, the same guy.
Oh my gosh, that poor man.
There is one more incident that took place right after. In 2015, I started working as a custodian at Cedar Grove Elementary. Behind the school is the border highway, then the Rio Grande, of course. Is it the Rio Grande or just Rio Grande? I know it's supposed to be spelled, like, not spelled, said as Grande, but the Rio Grande.
Rio Grande. That sounds right to me.
Of course, covered by a huge metal fence that separates Mexico from El Paso. I worked the night shift from 2:30 to 11 p.m. One night, I was stuck working with another custodian until midnight. Right when we were about to leave, we do a walkthrough of the school to make sure all the doors are locked on the outside. I worked with another custodian named C. C always told me that he has never believed in ghosts. Up until that night, I can
about to believe.
Oh snap, that was so clever. I saw that C had opened his hood of his car. Then he asked me, hey Jay, can you give me a jump? My car battery is dead. I told him yes, of course. Just as I stepped out of my car, a loud screaming came over from the Rio Grande. And this is not just a ditch. This is a...
Say, is it in a ditch again?
It's not a ditch. All the animals in the nearby neighborhood started howling and crying. Once again, the screaming resembled a woman screaming her guts out in a hallway as it echoed all over. C looked at me and said, oh my god, is that a demon? I told him, no, C, that's Llorona. So casual.
This bitch been following me for years.
I'm so numb to it by now.
We're like buddies now.
Oh gosh, that would be terrifying. He looked right at me and said, no way, she can't be real. Then I said, I have heard her before. Then C said, hurry please, and let's get out of here. I gave him a jump, and just then we saw a border patrol jeep speeding towards the screaming woman. Just then I thought to myself, I can record this and share it with the world. I took my phone out, and just as I hit record, the screaming faded away.
Oh.
C and I looked at each other, and he said, what the F? Sorry, Jay, I'm leaving before that evil witch comes back to get us. We both left, and the very next day, C was telling everybody at work how he heard the witch crying the night before. That was the last time I encountered her. I don't think it is the last, as I feel that she may choose who hears her or sees her. I have other paranormal stories, as I was a part of a group here in El Paso, Texas. We have investigated many historical locations. I also got the chance to investigate with Amy Bruni and other celebrities that have visited El Paso. This is a whole other story for another day. Thank you for listening. And in time, I will have more of my stories posted. No fear. I don't know why I wrote that, but whatever.
Little plug for him.
Yeah. And I forgot to give my sources at the beginning because I always put them at the end for some reason. So I used All That's Interesting and whereametoo.com. I have no idea what it is, but that's where I got some of the spooky stories.
Cool.
But anyways, that's my story on Llorona.
That's awesome and sad and terrifying and great.
And super spooky.
Yes, very spooky. Well, if you want more spooky spooks, check out our TikTok where we do a ghost of the week. We are Histories and Mysteries Pod. You can find us there. And if you want more of us lovely ladies between now and next Sunday, you can find us on our website at historiesandmysteries.godaddy sites.
Go Daddy.
Histories and Mysteries Podcast. Right? Histories and Mysteries Podcast.godaddy sites.com.
And please rate and review us. We really appreciate it. Huge... Un momento. I have a shout out. I have a shout out.
Okay.
Huge shout out to National Park After Dark. They are a podcast. That they explore the dark side of national parks.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, they. I was just talking to one of the hosts of the podcast, and she's super nice. And she gave us a little bit of a listen, so we're gonna have to go listen to her because she's so sweet, and I'm really interested in listening to her podcast that she does with her co-host.
Yeah, those are some crazy stories. I'm very interested to learn more about those.
Yeah, for sure. So go check them out because they're pretty great. And thanks to everybody that have been posting in our group on Facebook.
Yeah.
We really love those posts.
We do.
And they're very interesting, so people should go look at them and interact with them because they're really, really fun.
Yeah, especially the Loch Ness. I can't talk.
Yes.
Loch Ness Monster one was really cool.
And that same lady, she just posted about Notre Dame.
Oh, cool.
Hopefully she's okay with me telling, like, Carla, thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
And then we also have Thomas
About
Love.
Notre Dame, the football team, or Notre Dame?
No, the cathedral.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the cathedral. So she posted about that, which is cool.
Cool. I haven't seen that post yet. I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, so rate and review us. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.